The doors of the transport pod hissed open, and 40 armed women rushed toward me at full speed, eyes locked on mine, and for one terrible heartbeat I was sure I had walked straight into my own death. I did not move. I could not move. My boots felt stuck to the floor, and all I could do was watch as the wall of warriors closed the distance, boots pounding, weapons raised, voices calling out words I did not understand. Then, 3 steps away from me, every single one of them stopped at once, as if an invisible rope had pulled tight across the room. A tall woman with silver markings running down both arms stepped through the crowd and studied me the way someone studies a stain they cannot identify. Her name was Sarah Core, and she commanded every person standing in that hangar. I would later learn she had led this unit longer than I had been alive, and not one of her warriors had ever openly questioned an order in front of an outsider. "You did not run," she said, in slow, careful English. "Why?" My mouth had gone completely dry. I did not know where to run. A wave of quiet laughter passed through the crowd, and just like that, the tension in the room broke, though I had no idea why, or what had almost happened to me only seconds before. It turned out I was never supposed to be there at all. 3 weeks earlier, back on Earth, I had signed up for a new program that let humans serve alongside other species on shared stations across the galaxy. My sister had done a research rotation the year before and came home full of stories about places I could not pronounce, and some part of me wanted a story of my own, even a quiet one. I asked for a spot in the engineering section of Meridian Station, fixing wiring and old reactors, nothing more exciting than that. Somewhere between my application and my arrival, a translation system matched my enlistment file to the wrong unit, and instead of waking up near a toolbox, I woke up inside a transport pod belonging to the Korvath Sisterhood, a combat force known and feared across 3 star systems. The coalition itself was barely 5 years old, a loose agreement between a dozen species who had decided that open space was easier to defend together than apart. Earth had only joined 2 years before I signed up, which meant most of what I knew about alien life came from the same nervous briefing videos every new recruit was shown, none of which had mentioned anything about transport pods or trial rushes. Sarah Core explained all of this to me later, sitting across a narrow metal table while the rest of her unit watched from the doorway, as if I might vanish if they blinked. "Among my people, only women serve in combat," she said. "Our females carry greater strength and sharper reflexes. Our males hold other roles, just as important, simply different. The system received your file with no listed gender, since your people often leave that field blank, and it placed you here with us instead. So I am stuck here," I said. "For now. A transfer must pass through several offices before anyone even reads it, and that takes time. Meanwhile, we are short of hands, and a new threat has been raiding settlements near our patrol route. You will train with us until your papers are approved." "What is your name?" she asked before I could argue. "Ethan," I said. "Ethan Hale." She nodded once, as if filing the name away, and that was the end of the conversation. I learned soon after that the rush in the hangar had never been an attack at all. It was tradition, a trial every new recruit faced on their first day, meant to test whether they would freeze, run, or stand firm. No one had expected a human to simply stand there in pure confusion, but apparently that counted as standing firm in their eyes, and word of it spread through the unit faster than I could explain that I had only been too frightened to move my legs. Training did not go much better than that first impression. On my first day in the practice ring, a quick, sharp-eyed warrior named Vantha put me on my back 4 times in under a minute. She did not look angry about it, only mildly disappointed, like a teacher grading a test she already expected me to fail. "You fight like glass," she said. "Nice to look at, breaks the moment something touches it." "I am still learning your style," I said, picking myself up for the 5th time. "Then stop using my style and find your own," she said, and walked off before I could ask what she meant. That night I lay in the narrow bunk they had given me and wondered, not for the first time, if a clerical mistake was about to get me killed somewhere I was never meant to be. Earth felt impossibly far away, further than the actual distance could explain, and for the first time since landing, I let myself admit how frightened I really was. That evening in the mess hall, a quiet warrior named Nissa slid a tray of food across the table toward me without a word, then watched closely as I tried whatever strange grain dish sat in the middle of it. When I did not make a face, she seemed almost disappointed. "Humans really will eat anything," she said. "We have a long history of being hungry," I told her, and for the first time since arriving, the table actually laughed, a real, warm sound that made the unfamiliar ship feel slightly less like a cage. "Leora," The warrior who sat across from me most nights after that started teaching me small things between meals. How to read the shift in someone's shoulders right before they struck. How to tell real calm from the kind that was only waiting to explode. None of it came from strength, and that, more than anything, was the part I could actually learn. Nissa, who rarely spoke first about anything, taught me something different. She walked me through the lower corridors for an hour most evenings, showing me where to place my weight on old metal floors, how to roll a footstep instead of dropping it, until I could pass within arm's reach of her without making a sound. It was slow, unglamorous work, and she never once told me I was doing well, but by the end of the week she had stopped correcting me. So when Vantha came at me again the next morning, I did not try to match her speed. I let her come, caught her wrist as she reached for me, turned my body with the motion instead of against it, and used her own momentum to put her on the ground instead of me. The ring went quiet for a moment, and then Vantha laughed from the floor. A real laugh this time. Now that is more interesting. After that morning, the unit stopped treating me like a problem to be managed and started treating me like a strange new tool they had not yet figured out how to use properly. I was never going to be as strong or as fast as any of them, but piece by piece, I was becoming useful in my own way, and that felt like enough. Then the alarm came. It tore through the ship in the middle of what passed for night, every light turning red. Sarah Core's voice filling the corridors and calling every available unit to the launch bay. A mining outpost on the edge of our patrol route, home to roughly 200 people, had gone silent after sending one broken distress call. Raiders known as the Skarn had been striking outposts like it for months, stripping them clean and leaving nothing useful behind. Half the unit was already deployed elsewhere, which meant the team heading out was smaller than anyone wanted, and that included me. "You are not ready," Sarah Core told me as I climbed into the landing craft anyway, since no one had told me to stay behind, and I was not about to ask. "Neither were you, the first time," Vantha said beside me, fastening her gear with quick, practiced hands. "Let him come." The outpost was dark when we landed, every light dead, every door hanging open and swaying slightly in a draft, whose source I could not find. We split into pairs to search the corridors, Leora and Nissa taking the upper levels while Vantha and I checked the storage tunnels below the main hall. The silence pressed against my ears in a way that made every small sound feel enormous. My own breathing, the scrape of my boots, the distant hum of machines still running with no one left to watch them. Halfway down the tunnel, Vantha's hand shot out and stopped me cold. Through a gap in a broken wall, two shapes moved slowly in the dark, weapons low, searching room by room. We had no cover and no time to retreat, so I fell back on the only thing Nissa had spent a week drilling into me. I rolled my weight onto the edges of my boots, breathed through my mouth, and became nothing more than another shadow against the wall. The two shapes passed within 10 feet of us and never looked back. We found the missing miners next, more than 20 of them locked inside a storage room behind a door welded shut from the outside. While Vantha kept watch down the tunnel, I pulled apart the control panel beside the door, found the wiring I needed, and crossed two cables that should never touch, sending just enough current through the old lock to force it open. It was a trick I had learned fixing old machinery back home, nothing special, but the miners came pouring out shaking and grateful, and Vantha looked at me as though she were quietly reconsidering everything she thought she knew about humans. One of the miners, an older man with a shaking voice, grabbed my arm and asked, in halting trade language, why a human was leading a Korvath rescue team. I did not have a short answer for that, so I told him the truth, that I had asked for a desk job and ended up here instead. And for a second, even with his outpost in ruins around him, the man actually laughed. We did not have long to feel good about it. A sound came from deeper in the tunnel, metal scraping against metal, and 3 Skarn raiders stepped into the light, tall and broad, armor plating across their chests, weapons already raised. Vantha moved first, fast and precise, but there were 3 of them against 2 of us, and within seconds we were pushed back against a wall with nowhere left to retreat. My heart pounded loud enough that I could hear it over everything else, and somewhere underneath the fear sat a strange, sharp clarity, the kind that only showed up when there was no more room left for hesitation. I remembered something Leora had told me back in training, that the Skarn relied heavily on their armor for protection but rarely trained for long fights, built instead for short, sudden raids. They hit hard and fast, but they tired quickly. So instead of trying to win fast, I did the opposite. I kept moving, kept circling, kept leading the closest one through the same narrow tunnel we had just searched, using what I already knew about its layout to slow him down with every turn, every low pipe, every loose panel I could knock into his path. Once he closed the gap enough that I felt the heat of his armor brush my shoulder. For a moment I was certain that was the end of it, but a low pipe caught him hard across the chest and bought me just enough room to keep moving. Humans were never the fastest or strongest creatures on our own planet, but for thousands of years our ancestors had survived by chasing prey across long distances until it simply could not run any further. And right then, that old stubborn endurance was the only real advantage I had. By the time Vantha had handled the other two and caught up with me, the raider chasing me had slowed to a stumble, and between the two of us, we secured him without much trouble at all. We made it back to the landing craft with every miner alive, every member of our small team standing, and a story that spread through the entire sisterhood faster than any of us could control. By the time we docked, warriors from units I had never even met were finding excuses to walk past me in the hallway, just to look. 3 days later, Sarah Core called me into her office, the same narrow table between us, the same careful look on her face. A datapad sat waiting on the table, and she slid it toward me. "Your transfer," she said. "Approved this morning. Meridian Station has a place open for you, effective immediately, if you still want it." I looked at the pad for a long moment, then at her. What if I do not? Before Sarah Core could answer, the door slid open, and Vantha leaned in without any attempt at knocking. "If he leaves, I am keeping his boots," she said, already eyeing them. Sarah Core did not even turn around. "Out," she said, and Vantha grinned and vanished, the door hissing shut behind her. For the first time since I had met her, Sarah Core almost smiled. "Then you tell me, and I tear it up myself. But understand this, the next mission will not be easier simply because you are human. It will only be a mission, and you will be expected to carry your share of it, the same as everyone else in this unit." Outside her office, I could already hear Vantha and Leora arguing about something, their voices sharp and familiar in a way that had quietly started to feel like home. I thought about Meridian Station, quiet and safe, full of wiring and old reactors, and nothing that would ever come rushing toward me again. I picked up the datapad, and without a single moment of hesitation, I tore it cleanly in half. Somewhere down the corridor, I was almost certain I could hear boots moving toward me again, a whole unit of them, fast and unannounced. And for the first time since I had arrived, the thought did not scare me at all.